You see kids not being able to have a upright posture. They actually collapse and they have to hold the head with their hand, or they're laying down. They just feel fatigued a lot. They don't have good tone to sit up. So that might be something you see. This is when we looking at symptoms checklist, it's not like a diagnosis, okay? This is something to just be like, it's like smoke. And your job is to be a detective and find the fire. All right, welcome everyone. In this episode, I will be going over the TLR book, the Tonic Labyrinthine Reflex. This is book number 4. In the past episode, we talked about book 1, 2, and 3 on the Moore Reflex, ATNR, and the CNR. So we went through the first 3 books. Today, we're going to go through the TLR, which is the Tonic Labyrinthine Reflex pattern. This reflex pattern is triggered by head movement. For the most part, it resembles a little bit as the moral, if you're thinking about the head movement being triggered by the head movement, but the reflex pattern can look a little bit different and the response can look a little bit different. So for the TLR, the reflex pattern is a full body flexion and full body extension. So that is the reflex pattern, and it's triggered by the head moving in front of the spine, and the head moving behind the spine. So the TLR forward when the head is flexed and then the body is in flex position. The TLR backwards is the head is extended and the entire body is extended. So those are 2 of the reflex patterns. So sometimes the difference you might see is like if the head is moved in flexed position, even when the child is on prone, it goes into flexed position. So that might look different than the moral. With the moral, for instance, it's like you're startling the child, right? So falling backwards, there's no head flexion trigger. It's just head extension trigger. So maybe that helps you in differentiating one or the other. But even though both of them are head movement, again, STNR is head movement as well, right? So the head is extending and flexing. And then with the STNR, remember, is dividing the upper body and lower body. So the upper body goes with the head movement, while the lower body is opposite, if that helps you remember. With the TLR, however, the entire body is unison. So this flexing and extending with this reflex pattern. When we work on any kind of coordination work, that's why we need to work on with all these reflex pattern, not just with one, because when all these reflex pattern is working and we have brain-body connection, good myelination, then we can have fluid movement and voluntary movement pattern that is not controlled by my head. So if my head is flexing and extending right now, the rest of my body are still, they're not moving with the head trigger. That is a good integration that we are looking at. While you're working on your treatment planning and putting together an activity, it's helpful to see what does this trigger look like. So when the body's moving in unison, flexion and extension, you see that with the TLR. So with this reflex, almost think of like the front of the body and the back of the body. So when you're working on a full flexion and full extension. That is the reflex pattern. Similarly, like the other reflex pattern influences the vestibular and the auditory, the visual. When it comes to the visual with the TLR, think of peripheral vision because look at what the movement does. It's like full extension. So when you're fully extending, it's like you're opening up, and then visually too, you're like extending your visual field. So it's peripheral vision. And then when you're flexing, you're narrowing your visual field. So when kids are flexed position a lot or shy and closed in, like the fear paralysis closed in, the visual field narrows as well. In order to increase the visual field opening and being able to see the surrounding, you need to open up. In order for you to open up, think about what the body needs: security, balance, good grounding, because each reflex pattern doesn't work on its own. They help one another. So in order for me to stand up and to open up for this, it's not just the TLR. I have to work on my feet, my grounding, my foot grasp, holding myself and feeling secure. Then I can feel like I can open up. if you're just teasing out just the TLR piece of it, that is the peripheral vision. And then think about that. And some of the things that you will see when the TLR is retained is posture, right? So it will affect posture. The TLR influences the whole body, flexion and extension, separation of the front and back of the body, muscle tone, and head writing skills, and upright posture. To have an upright posture, both agonist and antagonist muscles have to work in unison to keep a head and body up. When the TLR is not fully developed or integrated, muscle tone and posture will be affected, and holding the head in neutral spine position will be difficult. So that is here on image number 7. So for the tonic labyrinthine, think of tone, muscle tone, which the TLR influences. The TLR is one of the reflex pattern that helps with standing up and for posture. Sometimes you see like kids having balance or posture, they're standing like this. This is exaggerated, obviously, but when you see like a posture like this, flexed head and then flexed hips, and you have flexed knee and flexed ankle, like it's dropping. Though being able to stand up, that both the front and back have to come together for the child to stand upright. The same way with the STNR that we talked about, there are two phases, the head up and down. But with that, it's actually holding on all fours and being able to balance. So the child has to be able to balance in all fours before they move. Now we're talking about the child being able to balance upright before the child moves. So posture matters. The same way posture and good positioning, 90-degree that we talked about, looking at the joints that we talked about for the crawling piece of it, similar to the TLR. Okay, so there's several benefits. I mean, I actually did not talk about a lot of benefits for the other reflex, read the book. But there's several benefits for all these reflex pattern. Birthing process is number one. So all these reflex pattern influences the birthing process. And that is really, really important for standing, for tone, assist with cross-lateral movement and early development, whole body movement coordination, assist with near or far to near visual tracking, convergence and divergence. I talked about peripheral vision. So it also helps with near and far visual tracking. It influences auditory processing, of course, fine motor and all that is being influenced, and learning. One of the things that might stand out specifically for this will be the tone, the muscle tone, the standing, assist with changes in position, gravitational pull by helping the body balance. That is important. There are different things that you might see. And then there is, I believe, our symptoms checklist. Let me see, is on page 24 for this one. Look at the different symptoms checklist to see what are the areas that possibly this client have difficulty. But some of the challenges can be gross and fine motor development, poor balance, poor head control. Like head control, if you're working on head control and core strength, the moral and the TLR is going to be one of and the TNR as well. And hands pulling, actually, there's a lot more. But yes, the TLR for head control, you will see that you might see this posture for the TLR. So I talked about for the STNR that the child will be sitting on their heels. With this one, what happens is the trigger is the head. So for them to look down and right, which is the head, is flexed, and then the upper body is flexed. So the whole body, the core is flexed. So we talked about like the head extends, the entire body extends, including the core. The head flexes, the entire body flexes, the whole core. So you see kids not being able to have a upright posture. They actually collapse and they have to hold the head with their hand, or they're laying down. They just feel fatigued a lot. They don't have good tone to sit up. So that might be something we see. This is when we looking at symptoms checklist, it's not like a diagnosis. Okay. This is something to just be like, it's like smoke. And your job is to be a detective and find the fire. Okay. So it's just like trying to figure out what's going on. And when they're sitting, they might look like this, like kind of collapsing. When they stand, they might see that, their head is like coming out like that. Their chin is forward, difficulty, visual skills challenge, auditory skill. Some toe walkers, because we're working on front and back, And then you might see toe walkers with the TLR. So that's something to look into, to work on. A lot of challenges with sport and all that. Our symptoms checklist is on 24 and 25. Similar to the other book, not all of the exercises is important for you to do. Go by age and what is appropriate for the child's development, and make sure that you can incorporate that. Of course, work on rolling. I know a lot of people work on crawling. Yes, work on crawling, but rolling is very important. And I highly recommend you start looking at rolling. The TLR helps with rolling skill, and that's something that you can work on. Of course, standing and balancing activities that you can do as well. You can start screening by simple screening. You can do this at the head pendulum, having them stand and then see if they can look up and look down and tell your client not to move any part of their body except the head, and be able to hold. And whether or not there's tension in their neck, because some of them might just have a hard time lifting their head, you might see tension on the shoulder. And if there's tension in the shoulder and then weak neck and head control, that's something that you might need to start. Even though you feel like, okay, this child is older, do I really need to work on head control? Yeah, I think you should, because it will help you with getting to the next level of development and makes the coordination easier, the tone and everything that you want to work on. So you can do some resistant exercise that you can do if you feel comfortable with it. There's a lot of exercises you can do. Balance walking, you can do as well. Body awareness. I have this fun exercise. Everybody's done that growing up. Maybe you didn't, but anyways, it's just something simple that parents can do to give them an awareness of where their body's in space and to align. Because sometimes we're not aligned really well. So putting something heavy like a beanbag can help. There are a lot of scooter board exercises that you can do. Again, I want to go back to head control. If they don't have good head control and then there's a lot of tension, go back and work on core strength and work on head control in order to get a good result, because that might be stopping them. If you want to know how to really screen, put all these things together and screen and look at other reflex pattern, come to Reflex Integration Certification Program. We support therapists worldwide, and then we also look at their cases and make sure that they learn how to put together a treatment plan that's measurable, trackable, and repeatable. And it really takes skill and takes time to learn to observe this. It's not going to be like a one time I read a book and I get it. It takes a lot of practice, and you want to do a really good job with your clients because they're spending their time and energy and coming to you. So you want to be really efficient. If you want a lot of feedback and support in your treatment planning process, and if you want to get better at that, you definitely welcome to join us. I have exercises also for older adults you can do. We have a lot of body workers, Pilates and yoga instructors and chiropractors working on reflex pattern, and you can actually incorporate that. So you can do exercises as an adult and you can be a coach of some sort, but you might see that some of your clients that you're working with might actually have a retained reflex in their body that making it really difficult for them to participate. And as a coach, a Pilates instructors or yoga instructors, actually incorporating reflex pattern in your session or even understanding what to look for will make it really, really effective for you. Because sometimes it's not really the strength that you're working on. It might be these reflex patterns still present. And how can you identify that? And what are the exercises that might be difficult for that clients to do? So you'll see that some of the exercises I put together, I did Pilates. I've noticed even practicing and working with adults in Pilates that you see that some adults have a hard time accessing the muscles and even firing those muscle fibers because they don't even know where their body's in space. I know they're strong. I know they're adult. They're functional and they're doing really well in their life. But then you can see having difficulties. And I start to notice, I'm like, oh, these are reflex patterns similar to what we work on with other kids, and targeting those makes it easier to work on it to really identify that. So when you see that more advanced workout, it is really geared towards adults and older kids. If you need to work on for younger kids and then go on a little bit, you can, by looking through it, you'll know which one is for the younger kids and which one is for the older kids and adults. So take a look at it. All this is included inside the RITP app. You can access that as well. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about book number 5, The Spinal Reflex. I'll see you later.